Tell us a little bit about what you saw and being able to relay that message to Cora when you watched Kimbrel pitch and kind of help out so he wasn't tipping his pitches.
So tipping pitches, we hear about it all the time.
People at home understand what tipping pitches is all about.
It's amazing. And
that's remarkable.
Alex, the month of May has been very generous to the Tipping Pitches podcast. Now you may be saying, I don't know, May, not really a huge month for baseball. Always. Some teams are settling in to their terrible seasons, namely the New York Mets and the Oakland Athletics.
Mm-hmm.
Other teams are starting to separate themselves out from the pack, but really people are not paying all that much attention to baseball nationally in the month of May, but instead they're paying attention to basketball. But as you know, that is fortunate for us because one basketball owner has been getting a lot of sideline camera time. And that sideline camera time this week gave us a beautiful video of friend and mascot and mentor and dare I say deity of the show, Alex Rodriguez, putting in some eye drops because it looks like he's having a tough time with allergies. Just like
really
you and I. We started talking about each of our respective struggles with allergies before the show started. And I said, hold on, save this. This is good content for the cold open.
This is good content for our baseball podcast.
Well, this is how you subtly indicate to listeners that, you know, you might not be on your A game because you're just all stuffed up.
Right. Well,
it might be why you hear us sounding a little bit differently.
It suggests that about, you know, seeing baseball in the real world, right? Only the grasses of a baseball field have this sort of impact on me emotionally and certainly physically.
Yeah, I shared this video from the Tipping Pitches account. So if you'd like to go take a look at it, I'll describe it here. We cut to Alex Rodriguez. This is during a Lynx Liberty game. We cut to A-Rod on the sideline, who is the minority / maybe potentially majority owner, which we have discussed at great length, of the Timberwolves and the Lynx. And at a very opportune moment, he starts putting in some eye drops and then looks like he's very upset and crying.
I haven't seen this yet.
It just makes that perfect face that you make after you put in eye drops where you're like, this is very upsetting for 2 seconds. This is very upsetting.
It is. Well, he seems like he's done it before, you know, and also that he's trying to play it cool, right? He's not doing too much wiping away of his eyes, dabbing with his shirt, which is something that I'm known to do if I put some eye drops in and they drip down. He's just willing to kind of let it dry right there, even if it does mean a few uncomfortable seconds of camera time. And I just want to say, I'm so happy that there is a reason to have a camera trained on Alex Rodriguez at all times. Like I feel truly blessed with the gifts that we have been given. I was seeing someone like do some analysis on like Alex Rodriguez versus Mark Cuban, you know, the different styles of like buying an NBA team. And I just know how much he loves being put next to Mark Cuban in this comparison.
Your internet is different than my internet. Where were you seeing this? Who were you seeing do this?
I think it was a YouTube video. That's my preferred social media network of choice these days.
YouTube?
Yeah. It's like I had to watch the like 4-hour Star Wars hotel review.
I don't know what you're talking
missed
about.
That? All right. I missed that. Damn it.
Sorry. That's on me. That's on me, dog. My bad. I let you down. There's a Star Wars hotel? Should we go?
Yeah, but it's a branding controversy.
Oh, okay.
You know,
I was just regaling my family with the story of how seeing Rogue One as my first experience in a Dolby theater. You know, the Dolby theater at AMC. No free ads.
Familiar, yeah.
Where they have that Dolby Atmos surround sound mix and the big screen with the crisp colors. My first experience in a Dolby theater was none other than Rogue One. And of course, Star Wars, famous for its sound design and sound effects. And hearing that lightsaber in the Dolby Atmos mix, it changed me. It awoke something inside of me. I think we should have Dolby Atmos sound mixing for more things in life. You know, like when you're at the grocery store, the little dings that you hear when they like trying to page someone, we should have that in like Dolby Atmos, you know?
Got it.
When you're on the subway and they're like, next stop, Atlantic.
Right, like I want to be able to feel it like in my stomach.
Right, exactly. I want it to be surround sound of the voice. When they make the announcement that NYPD is available on the platform, I want it to reverberate through my brain.
Isn't it already kind of surround sound? There are speakers everywhere. Not that any of them work.
I don't know.
I feel like that's step one.
Making sure the speakers work.
Yeah.
What is your favorite common train malfunction? Mine is when the doors, only one half of the door opens.
Yes.
So people are always thrown off by that because everybody already is trying to file in at the same time that people are trying to file out. And when you cut that space in half to be only one door, it causes some really, really angry behavior. It's
really fun. I mean, people don't know how to interact with subway doors.
No.
Just point blank. You hold them open, you try and jam your way through them.
Right.
This is not a malfunction, but I think my favorite subway quirk is the mystery liquid that will trickle down from one side of a car to another, and you just kind of see people slowly noticing it one by one and like moving their belongings. Yep. No one does anything about it because what can you do about the mystery liquid?
Carrying an extra roll of paper towels on your person at all times.
Maybe not you.
Are you carrying an extra roll of paper towels?
You don't know.
I'm recently exploring. So I've always, for the last couple of years, really been a crossbody bag guy. Put all my essentials in there.
Right.
You know, my wallet, my keys, my headphones, my sunglasses. But I've recently been getting into potentially becoming more of a tote bag guy when I go out to places because I've been doing a lot more reading recently. And I can't read on my phone or I can't read on like a tablet or whatever because it hurts my brain. So I'm reading, get this, Alex, bound books, physical pages.
What do you mean?
You take it, there's words on one side of the page. And then when you finish reading those words, you flip the page. And then there's words on the other side of the page. And then as you progress through the book, you finish all the pages.
Interesting.
So I've been bringing books with me in the tote bag.
You should show me one of those one time.
All right. Well, I have one right here to my right. I'll put it on camera for all of the YouTube viewers that don't exist because we don't have a YouTube. Right, it's called When McKinsey Comes to Town.
Remaining on brand.
Definitely making me feel very normal reading this book. Just a lot of normal stuff that every company in America is doing.
Yeah. Reading When McKinsey Comes to Town on the subway and shaking my head the whole time. So everyone knows that I disagree with what McKinsey's doing.
Bravo. Well executed. Nice joke. Good work on your part. So I put that in the tote bag. So maybe I could throw a roll of paper towels in there too.
For the mystery you know liquid. What? I think you would be seen as a hero amongst New Yorkers.
I definitely would be on someone's TikTok account.
You absolutely would. Someone would take a video of it and be like, look at this man and how he's cleaning up the subway. And then you'd get like 1,000 people clowning you for being like, why are you on your hands and knees?
Right. Well, I don't know that I would go to that length. I might just throw the old paper towel down there and do the old, you move it back and forth with your shoe move. When it's like a liquid that you don't want to touch with your hands. That's what you do.
Right. Mailing it in. I see.
I told you about the time that I was one time on my way to the movie theater when I sat in a mystery liquid. That was one of the more upsetting experiences in my life. I didn't look down before I sat on the seat. And then I started to feel my butt was wet. And then when I did look down, it was just kind of like, I would describe it as like Coca-Cola colored.
Okay. I was going to wonder if you'd made a determination.
I'm hoping that it was Coca-Cola, but I doubt it.
Yeah.
In my brain canon, in my head canon, we're just going to go with the fact that it was Coca-Cola. But you know what I did? I was like, I'm too disgusted to continue on and go to the movie theater. So I turned around and I went home and I changed. And then I sprinted
You're just
back.
Gonna sit there in the liquid?
Yeah, you can't do that. So then I sprinted back to the subway. I made it to the movie in time. I actually made it to the movie 10 minutes late, but they let me in. So I considered it a win. I was very, very just sweaty and upset by the time I got.
Well, they knew. They were like, with any luck, this will end up in a 3 up, 3 down eventually, as part of Bobby's movie highlights. So PR for them, really.
Yeah, exactly. Free PR for Alamo Draft House, downtown Brooklyn. one of the worst movie locations in the United States of America. They could use all the help they can get. All right. Clearly, we have a lot of stuff to get to this week based on this intro. Like, we just have a lot of really important stuff to hammer out. So we're going to talk about some updates on the A's stadium. What else is new? We have an owner crying poor. And then we have some betting scandals. So it's all a lot of really new stuff this week. But before we get to all of that, I am Bobby Wagner.
I am Alex Baisley.
And you are listening to Tipping Pitches. All right, Alex, we have a Patreon episode coming later this week. Patreon exclusive episode where we, as Alex just mentioned, we do 3 up, 3 down every couple weeks on the Patreon feed. Longtime listeners will remember 3 up, 3 down, where as a segment where we go back and forth, we each have 3 things that bring us baseball joy, 3 things that bring us joy in the baseball world, and 3 things that are sapping our joy in the baseball world. Baseball world in quotes here, because it's really become much more of like a what's going on kind of segment. But if you're looking for that, you can find that at patreon.com/tippingpitches. Thank you to this week's new patrons, James. And also I wanted to give a special shout out to everybody who has upgraded from a lower tier up to the top tier to get those bonus episodes. I see you. I appreciate you. It's just really hard to kind of keep track of who those people are. So I'm not going to give you a specific shout out every week, but this is the blanket shout out to those people. Hope you are enjoying your Patreon exclusive bonus episodes. First topic this week. The A's allegedly are going somewhere. I'm not sure that I believe it, but alas, they have what now? They have sold their share of the Coliseum?
They have, yes.
Because they are going to Sacramento, for sure. They're for sure doing that, right? We're for sure, we're going there, and then after we go there, we're for sure going to Las Vegas, correct? Just so I have that all straight.
I've seen the renderings for the upgrades they're going to make. Like, it is definitely happening. I've seen the uniforms that don't say anything on them, and I've already bought 4, so I'm in.
Tell us, Alex, as you do so well, about municipal ownership, tax districts. Are we going to hit on any tax districts in this segment?
I don't think we need to, thankfully. Yeah, so after many years of dragging their feet and back and forths with cities and counties and development groups, the A's are selling their share, their half of the Oakland Coliseum site to the African American Sports and Entertainment Group, which is a consortium of local investors. And their thinking is they're going to turn it into a sort of mixed use development, entertainment project, convention center, etc. You know, what big cities tend to do these days. But it is kind of an interesting coda on the A's presence in Oakland, because for the longest time they held on to this share of the site, and people had a lot of questions about what that meant and what they intended to do with it. Now we know John Fisher is pursuing a $1.5 billion stadium in Las Vegas, and he has to come up with money for that eventually. I think that's usually how those things work.
Money is one of the things on the list of things that he has to come up with. He also has to come up with the land and the people who are going to give him the money, and also the approval and the zoning, and also the team has to come too. So that's a right off the bat, just a short list of things he needs.
Right, but like a lot of those are details that can be ironed out, right? And we'll figure it out. The land, what is land?
Well, they're going to do something new and innovative in the stadium building space, which is that they're going to build the stadium first, and they're going to drag it like one of those like pre-made homes on a tractor trailer into Las Vegas.
Prefab baseball stadiums. Just airlifted in via helicopter.
Essentially, that is as plausible of a plan as what they have right now.
Yes, 100%. Alongside this and we alluded to this is the news that Rob Manfred came out with, which is that the A's are going to construct an adjoining building to Sutter Health Park, which is the Sacramento minor league stadium where they're going to play next year and maybe forever. As a means of serving as the home clubhouse for the team. They're going to make other renovations, like adding new turf, adding club seating, It's upgrading video board quality. I don't know. Sure, whatever. It's a long list of things that they say they're going to do that is not really going to bring this ballpark to major league caliber status.
Camera quality. Don't forget camera quality.
Oh, camera quality. Yes.
Right. We have to shoot in 4K for all of the people who don't want to watch the A's.
I would rather they shoot it in like minor league baseball. Like there is something that is so
480p.
organic about the 480p, like shaky handheld camera.
I don't think it is 480p. I think let's give them some credit.
It's a little better.
It's like 720 at minimum.
But no, I want two camera angles, one in center field and one behind the plate. And you just switch back and forth between the two of them. Why do you need the rest of them? To zoom in on Alex Rodriguez?
Do you think Alex Rodriguez will attend any of these games?
No.
I don't think so either.
Unless John Fisher is trying to court him as an owner.
If you had to ballpark it, no pun intended, although maybe pun intended, how much money do you think those improvements will cost? New turf, new home clubhouse, which will be an entirely standalone building, club seating, video boards, camera quality, as well as all of the other infrastructural improvements they will need to make to that area to accommodate those things more broadly. We're talking what, like $50 to $100 million?
Yeah. I was going to say in the high tens of millions of dollars, jacking up the price tag for this whole endeavor.
That's before you factor in that the A's are running the lowest payroll in baseball, and they will have to at some point like sign some players maybe in order to draw anyone to see this team in Sacramento or in the future Las Vegas. And that's just for the 3-year stopover that we're alleged 3-year stopover that we're talking about in Sacramento. All the while they're selling their portion of the Coliseum, so they're burning that potential back out option, burning that potential bridge. They're really saying like, no, we're really leaving Oakland. We really are. I swear, we really are. I just don't like, I find this to be so confusing. What's going on here? I really don't know. We're in masterful gambit, sir, territory for John Fisher, where it's like, I don't even really know what your end game is here, my dude. Like, you're not improving the cash flow of the team. In fact, you're going in the opposite direction. You're like, what is any possible way that I can sign myself up to cost myself hundreds of millions of dollars over the next 5 years? Yeah,
well, they're leaving a established MLB market, so they're losing their local media deal on all the revenue that was the 70 some million dollars that brings in every year.
Yes.
So, like, again, they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot left and right at a time when they're trying to make this franchise look like a reasonable investment vehicle in the long term.
But that's what I mean, though. Like, what is the goal? Is the goal to increase the franchise value? Because that doesn't help unless he sells the team. And what they're doing right now is not increasing the franchise value. At what stage of this process am I supposed to see the thing that increases the franchise value? Like, you don't even have like the sports business guys being like, well, when that team gets to Vegas, its franchise value is going to go through the roof. Like, those hacks are not even on board with your plan. So I really think that he is just like one man alone in a room having 3 people tell him, yes, this is a great idea. And like quite literally everybody else, 99.99999% of the population is like, dude, no, this is not going to work. This is clearly the bottom is going to fall out of this at some point. And I guess the only thing to do at that point will be to cut his losses and sell the team and keep them in Oakland. That's why I keep saying I don't think they're going to leave. But he's depressed the franchise value with his actions over the last 4 years. So I don't know. I guess round of applause, sir. You maybe pocketed a little bit of extra revenue for the last 3 years, but you offset that apparently on stadium renderings that cost you $100 million. I don't know where you were going to have those drawn.
Yeah, well, he's really backed himself into a corner with this. I mean, kind of alongside this, and I think maybe we mentioned this before, but the league instituted this sort of flip tax that is basically going to take a cut of that is basically implemented to disincentivize Fisher from immediately flipping the team after building a new ballpark, right? And juicing the franchise value. So it'll take 20% of the sale price, if it gets sold between now and I think 2029, and then it'll kind of decrease from there 10%, 8, whatever, through 2030 something. So from every angle that you look at it, I don't even see how this is a good investment for like a bank or a private equity firm who is looking to buoy, these efforts. Because this is what Fisher's doing, right? It's you're either taking out a loan from a bank and saying, yes, we will pay this back later because look at the good business I'm running that is going to go up in franchise value and these returns will pay for themselves.
Yes.
Or you are selling a minority stake in the team, which has been talked about. I mean, he is courting potential minority ownership partners right now that I think, if I recall correctly, are valuing the team at something like $2 billion, right?
But
which
like,
is
giving
way
away
more
equity, though, is like cutting into whatever profit that you'd be gaining. Giving away equity now is cutting into whatever profit you'd be gaining by increasing the franchise value and selling it 3 years from now. Like, it's just...
Yeah.
Did I just not go to like business school and I don't know what he's trying to do here? Or is he actually just like the dumbest person alive? Answer that. That's the question I have.
It is like a coin flip at this point, right? Because if you are trying to court investors in your team, you are trying to show them that you have a viable business on your hand, that at some point, ideally in the near future, you are going to make money. And I just don't see a clear path to that beyond him turning back to his family and saying, I actually need more money.
Well, that's always been the thing that's the safety net, I guess.
Right.
Is that he can say, oh, I'll sell some Gap stock. But like, how much Gap stock do you have to keep papering over the mistakes that you're making with the Oakland A's? Of course, we know that like JP Morgan and Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, like all these people want to give sports owners money. They want their money to be tied up in big, huge projects like this because it gives them prestige and it puts them in the right rooms and it gives them business partnerships and connections and leverage over some of the richest people in America. And it's you scratch my back, I scratch yours, whatever, right? But at some point, if you're really actually not making any money because the A's are pulling themselves out of all of the things that would be making them money, the gate receipts are not going to be able to keep up with the expenses of improving Sutter Health Park. And the TV deal is being undercut by this move. And how do you even negotiate a next TV deal if you don't even know where you're going to be? Like if you don't even have the guarantee that you're going to be in Las Vegas to unlock these public funds that Vegas has set aside because they have to hit all of these different benchmarks to be able to prove that they can get this money from Las Vegas first. I mean, I know that it's been approved and it's been pushed through and they've lobbied everybody at every stage of the process to be able to make that possible. But there are still things that they need to do to prove that they are actually putting a park there. They don't just get that money and then like, actually, we're not going to Las Vegas. Like, I don't think that money can cross state lines, guys. I'm not sure how that works, but last time I checked, the state legislature cannot push money into California from Las Vegas. So like, at some point, it just becomes like a straight up question of whether or not you can service all of the debt. And I know that like I spent a truly deranged amount of time in our CBA breakdown pod talking about what the debt servicing rules are supposed to be for owners in a normal situation. And obviously Manfred can make a case-by-case exception for that. But like, how much appetite, honestly, does Rob Manfred and the rest of the 29 other owners, because it's really not totally Rob Manfred's choice. It's like if the other owners are like, okay, this is getting to be ridiculous, for making exceptions for the A's. How much appetite is there for that? Because it's like, it's getting to be absurd at this point. And if you're just going to take on $100 million more of debt to make the most beautiful minor league stadium ever, what is that accomplishing for 3 years of baseball? Because for all that you want to say about the fact that like loans are available for free at all times to these guys, more or less, that's actually not really true. Like their debt to income ratio, I would guess, without having seen their balance books. Breaking news, I have not seen the balance books, the balance sheets of the Oakland Athletics, though I wish I would. If you work for the A's and you want to leak that to Tipping Pitches, please contact us, tippingpitchespod@gmail.com. I would guess that they're among the worst of any modern Major League Baseball team, which leads, I think, some people. I saw a reporter editor for The Athletic worrying that like the only path forward is contracting the team or temporarily contracting the team, and that this is actually where it's starting to get really dark because he's basically just like boxed himself out of any reasonable financial path forward.
Yeah, and while contraction seems crazy, like I don't think it's a path that MLB wants to follow or even really necessarily makes sense here, but like nothing else makes sense about this either. And I think what's worrying, what should be worrying to John Fisher is the fact that he's been trying to court this money for roughly a year now, that we've heard that he's kind of going to banks and looking for these investments. And so like news is out, right? That John Fisher, the billionaire owner of the Oakland A's, is looking for investments in his baseball team to build a new stadium. And the fact that no fish have tugged on his line yet, or that he hasn't hooked any, like with each passing day, this maybe seems obvious to say, but with each passing day, the likelihood of him securing that, I feel like, goes down, because the longer it's out there, the more people are evaluating these options. Whether John Fisher has approached you or not, you're saying, hey, well, is this an investment we should pursue? Should we take a look at this? And the more time it's out there and the more radio silence there is, the more that's an indicator to everyone else that maybe this investment is actually not a good one. And so I think he's going to have a harder and harder time convincing folks that, I know that Morgan Stanley looked at my books and wasn't really interested in this, but trust me, JP, Mr. Morgan, this investment is a good one. I think that argument gets harder to make with each passing day, which is why it feels more and more likely that he either turns to his brothers and says, help me out here, or is forced to sell the team. And whether that is forced because from his own business perspective, he thinks there's no viable path forward, or because the league says this is turning into an embarrassment. You have a baseball team that now no longer has a home because of your hijinks, and we'd like it to have one, right? Which is why I think that like a forced sale is not out of the question yet, even though I don't think Manfred wants to do it, because this whole thing is quickly becoming a stain on his legacy. And I'm sure he would much rather the path be cleared to Las Vegas to say, hey, look, I got one last thing over the line before my commissionership ended.
Honestly, I think that like the idea of a forced sale, if you could tell Rob Manfred that it would have no ripple effect, whereas like people, no owner would care. It would not change the perspective of what the commissioner's role is. I'm sure he would be like, yeah, that'd be great. I'm tired of calling local politicians and telling them that I will capture their families and put them in basements. I'm tired of doing that. Parody. That's parody. Rob Manfred's never done anything like that. But I just think that that's like, to Rob Manfred saying you have to force an owner to sell is the same as saying to you and me, like, you guys have to fly to the moon and do the podcast next week. Like, that's just not reasonable. That's not right. What he does. And and the other owners probably don't want the idea of a forced sale either, because they're all like psycho right-wing libertarians and they think they should be able to do whatever they want with their team, including and especially running it into the ground in the special way that they want to. Like, you're John Fisher, and what is your hope? To grow the A's into a brand that is as beautiful and beloved as the New York Yankees. And what did we get when you have the Yankees? You have the owner of the Yankees, Hal Steinbrenner, being like, we don't have enough money to afford our own payroll, which is a lie, of course. So the other thing that we wanted to talk about this week was Hal Steinbrenner crying poor and getting out ahead of next offseason, basically, and saying, hey, we can't pay to keep this team fully together. I guess trying to plant a soft landing spot for an eventuality where they don't have the highest bid for Juan Soto, I guess, and they lose out on him in his free agency next offseason, next winter. But if you start telling owners what they can and can't say how they can and can't run their team, what their financing looks like what the best path forward is, then it quickly starts to unravel, and you start to realize like none of these guys are running their team like they're supposed to be running their team in terms of from a business perspective, like from sustainability of the business perspective. Yes.
Yeah, because they say, well, if this guy over here had his team put on the market because he wasn't running it well, that is a signal to other owners, for better for worse, that the same thing could happen to you. However unlikely that is, right? And but on the other side of it, I'm like, this is why else have a monopoly? like this is the reason why you control this whole ecosystem, is so you can do stuff like this.
I agree. I completely agree. It's like we should be saying at all times, is Hal Steinbrenner the best person to be owning the Yankees? And the answer is no. Yeah. Sorry, you have to sell the team. Here's a question for you. How many owners, if you polled the fans, how many owners would pass a Democratic vote to keep them as the owner of the team?
That's a good question. I think you would probably get a dozen, at least half the league, maybe.
That's a lot. I was going to say like 5. Who are the easy ones in your mind?
I mean, Orioles.
Yep.
Phillies. I think the Rangers.
Wow.
I think that like teams,
bleak but true.
The fan memory is so tied to like, what have you done for me lately, that like if your owner put together a good team and you made a run last year, like why change the formula, right? I guess now that I look at more teams, maybe that number is a little high. Yes, the Dodgers. I guess on a lot of these other teams, it's kind of a coin flip. The Braves.
But are the Braves like, well, I guess you're right. The Braves are really just like Anthopoulos. The Braves fans like Anthopoulos. I feel like they could take a liberty.
It's a means to an end, right?
Right.
It's like as long as you stay out of our way and let us do our thing, great.
Yeah. I'll accept that. Braves probably.
I don't know. The Padres are in a weird spot, but for a while there, I think the Padres fit that mold.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Feel like they're DQ'd.
Speak as a Mets fan. What do you think?
You would have to say yes.
As in, yes, I want to keep him on board.
Right. Knowing that what would happen, it wouldn't be like in my hypothetical, I'm not saying like you can remove the owner and choose anybody you want to replace him.
Right.
It's just like you vote out the owner and whoever comes in can buy it. So like you're just opening yourself up to whatever idiot comes along with $3 billion.
Right. Like the standard baseline, like billionaire owner.
Right.
0 wins above replacement. Your AAA call up.
AAA call up. That's fun. So like Alex Rodriguez calling him up from minority ownership of the Wolves. Yeah. So I think that the Mets would probably be in there. I mean, Steve Cohen's literally said here's $350 million a year.
Yes.
Like what else do you want?
You cannot, in good conscience, like vote any other way.
Probably. I think that right now, the Twins, the poll ads would probably pass inspection at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I could be wrong about that, but like, I think that they're above average. Those are the only ones that I feel confident in, frankly.
Yeah, I probably agree with that. And this is where I think it comes down to like how the team's most recent series went. Like, are the Brewers on a streak? Sure, Tanasio can stick around.
No, he's done. He's not good.
Think?
He's not good. He's broke, and also he will never get out of a small market mentality. That's like the whole thing. I think that they would vote him out. Yes.
All right, hell yeah. I mean, the Ricketts are getting voted out.
Well, definitely. Yes. They're despised.
Nutting is gone.
I mean, the obvious ones are, Nutting is gone. Jerry's gone. I mean, Artie, like 90% of people would vote him out, probably. It'd be like the most agreed upon thing in American history.
Yep, yeah.
I feel like maybe Sherman might stay. Royals fans seem to be happy with the direction that things are going.
I say things seem to be going okay.
The Bobby Witt Jr. extension, they're like, we're cooking right now.
Right. But again, also depends on whether or not he fleeces the city for his own couple billion for another ballpark.
That's true. But I'm talking about the whole fan base,
I know.
Everyone, not just people in our little
woke
lefty corner over here. The Red Sox owners would be way gone. They're so done with that ownership group.
Yeah.
Even though they've gotten them like 5 rings, but whatever. And I think that I think the Yankees owner, I think Yankees fans would be like, if it was George, easily keep him. But Hal, it's like, we're done with this shit. Someone could do this better. It's the literal Yankees, you know?
Yes.
You're playing with unlimited money.
Yes.
And still, you're getting stuff like Hal Steinbrenner coming out saying it's, quote, simply not sustainable for us financially after 2024. Why put so much pressure on yourself as an owner? Why put so much pressure on every calendar year being like, well, we can't keep running a payroll like this, so this is really the year. You know, it's like, it's impractical. I just don't understand it. You don't need to say stuff like this. Just don't say stuff like this. Just quietly cut the payroll by $7 million next year. Don't come out in May when your team has the best record in the American League and be like, no, we have to do this. It's such unforced error. Such an unforced error.
Yeah, he says, I don't believe I should have a $300 million payroll to win a championship. Why not?
I don't care what you believe.
If that's what it takes.
We're not talking about your religion.
You haven't been able to do it without it, so.
So true. So true. Why don't you try a $120 million payroll? You want to so
goes.
bad. You want to so bad. You want to be the Rays so bad. Why don't you just try it?
Yeah.
Why? Why not?
See how that goes. You can try it as long as you sit right behind the dugout for every game. You have to take
run
it all from the Yankees fans.
Don't sit up there in the Bank of America booth up there. No. Yankee Stadium presented by Bank of America. Presented by Dude, everything. Every ad in there is like Bank of America. It's crazy.
That's fair.
Same thing with Dodger Stadium. And Yankee Stadium has a lot of MasterCard ads.
Yeah, they're big on MasterCard.
They love MasterCard, the official card of Yankee Stadium.
Whatever that means.
We're getting really loose with the term. I think I said this on the podcast the other day, but like presenting sponsors. What are you presenting?
Mm-hmm.
It's like when you open the MLB app, half the time it's like presented by, John Deere. I'm like, it's an app. This can't be presented by a lawnmower. Like, it's just not. It's just ridiculous. Okay. Speaking of sponsorships, should we talk about David Fletcher betting on sports?
Sure.
Illegally?
Yeah.
MLB has opened an investigation into former Los Angeles Angels infielder David Fletcher, alleging that he gambled with an illegal bookie. Not just any illegal bookie, Alex. Matthew Boyer, who you might know, accepted wagers from Ippei Mizuhara and was running an illegal book in the state of California. It's just like, this was so easy to predict. Like, it wasn't easy to predict how it came about. It wasn't easy to predict anything with Otani's interpreter, Ippei Mizuhara. It wasn't easy to predict like the illegal nature of the sports book, but something with betting and violating the rules was so easy to see coming. And when David Fletcher gets suspended for what he did, which he will, we will be able to cross that off the Tipping Pitches 2024 bingo card.
To your point, this was all very obvious. In the story, it notes, and I'm reading from ESPN's report on this, right? That one of Fletcher's close friends, Colby Schultz, who's a former minor leaguer, also bet with this same bookie and did, in fact, wager on baseball, which Fletcher didn't. And so, and again, like the timeline of it all is a little unclear, although it notes that he did bet on Angels games while Fletcher was playing. And so, like, this is where it all starts to get really murky, because it was never going to be a black and white issue of a player bet on baseball and we can ban him, or no, he didn't bet on baseball, so he's good. It's going to be a lot of these stories where it's a friend of a current player bet on games that he was like playing in, and he himself was a former player. And so, yes, he's not actively throwing his own baseball games, but the integrity of the sport went out the door as soon as you opened up this possibility.
It was never going to be like Rowdy Tellez logs on to FanDuel and it's like, I will bet today on my team to lose from my own account, from rowdytelez@gmail.com. Like
Right.
that was never going to happen.
Brewers.com.
I don't think he's in the Brewers anymore.
Oh, no, he's on the Pirates.
Pirates. Yeah. He just feel like a Brewer, though. You know?
Yeah. In my heart.
Big, bulky first baseman who can't play defense and occasionally has
You know what he does?
occasionally slugs.
He gets on base.
Does he? Does he still?
Kind of.
How sure are you about that?
I don't know. I watched Moneyball again this weekend, so it's fresh.
Did you? 5 stars?
My partner did, and of course I sat down and watched the whole thing.
I watched The Big Short last night, so we're just locked in on Michael Lewis.
Yeah.
When you were talking about Morgan Stanley the whole time, I was like, how likely was it that we got 2 major banks that are not part of the same conglomerate that have Morgan as an operative title? There's JP Morgan and Chase, and there's Morgan Stanley. Morgan Stanley merged together because I think Morgan and Stanley used to be separate. I don't know, though. But I was just thinking about that because I was watching Big Short last night, and Morgan Stanley is the parent bank of Mark Baum's investment firm, who is one of the shorts, who's played by Steve Carell in the movie. And there's a question of if Morgan Stanley is going to go out of business because they have $15 billion worth of exposure when the housing bubble bursts. You know, $15 billion. Not sure if you keep that much capital on hand. Typically,
I hate when I have $15 billion of exposure during a financial crisis.
I know that's the
I hate that. Ruins my
I
money.
much prefer to be in the sort of like $1 to $3 billion of exposure range. That's right.
Yeah,
that's my happy,
easy.
my sweet spot.
Light work.
$1 to $3 billion of exposure is like you're down 1-2 in the count, but you still might foul a couple off and get on base. But when you have $15 billion of exposure, you somehow
that's facing Mason Miller down 0-2. What are you gonna do? Where are you gonna go?
You're down 0-7 to Mason Miller.
Right.
If you don't get a hit in the next 2 pitches, the inning is over.
Right. They take you back to the farm upstate.
I would rather be at the farm upstate than face Mason Miller.
Than in the box, yeah.
I'd be the first person to just abstain from a Major League Baseball at bat.
I forfeit.
Someone else go out in my place so we bat out of order and I'm automatically out. Please. I don't really have much else on this David Fletcher thing. Do you? Do you have like a take? Come at me with a good counter take. Like, what's wrong with David Fletcher betting on other sports illegally?
I mean, what is wrong with it?
Well, like in comparison to what they say you're allowed to do, which is bet on other sports just through these apps.
Right. Exactly. I'm kind of like, I don't. So he has his own guy. So he's got a buddy. You know what they're doing? They're supporting small business owners.
Right. Keeps the economy going. What's the Biden thing? It's like helps small business, like grows the economy. What was he talking about?
That's probably something like that. Sounds likely.
I was recently looking for the photo of you meeting John Fisher to remember a simpler time.
Yeah.
And in searching for that photo, because I searched Alex in my Photos app because my Photos app knows who you are. Naturally, a thing that needs to exist. The facial recognition within my Photos app, so useful.
I agree.
And I came across the photo of us at the Joe Biden rest stop, saluting.
The long tail.
Jokes from 2021 just don't hit anymore. You know, they're just not. It's just not the same. Nothing was the same.
I will note that on my iPhone in my Photos app, among my people and pets, there is one Alex Rodriguez featured because I have enough photos of him on my phone. And when I click onto it, because I also have him as a contact, of course, you know, it says found in contacts. Is this A-Rod? And I say, yes, it is.
It's really good sometimes to let people know that not only do you talk the talk, but you walk the walk.
I do. Unfortunately, the first photo that comes up is A-Rod with Trump at a wedding at Mar-a-Lago. So, you take the good with the bad.
I have, in my people and pets, it's just maybe 5 of my closest friends, you included, and then just my immediate family. I don't have any celebrities in here. So maybe I need to step my game up.
Yeah, you're not curating your A-Rod feed like I am. People
do send it to you.
It's the reason I don't let people go through my phone. I'm like, all the A-Rod photos would be so embarrassing. Oh my God. Why do you have him shirtless 7 times? It was for a bit. I can't explain it.
It was for a bit. I can't explain it. Yeah, you have to be a year-long listener of the podcast to understand it.
Yeah.
I do have a lot of photos of Martin Scorsese. I'm sure that if
your own personal patron saint.
Right. I'm sure if I went in there and actually tagged them, it would add him as a contact.
Right.
Well, this has been a tremendous review of our Photos app. I just think that this is what people come here for, honestly.
I think so, yeah.
All right, let's do a couple listener questions and then we'll do the closing segment, which we got a lot of submissions about for names that I want to talk through with you. But we'll do a couple questions first. First question, this comes from Joel. Thoughts on Anne Hathaway's decision to support John Fisher in his war on Bay Area baseball by wearing Gap on the red carpet? Assuming this was for what is the name of them? Anyone But You?
No, it's
fuck, that's the Sydney Sweeney Glenn Powell.
Yes,
what is it called?
The Idea of You.
Idea of You. See, those are close.
They are close.
I watched that movie. I didn't see Anyone But You, but I did watch Idea of You. Did you see it?
I did as well, yeah.
What did you think?
It had an Anne Hathaway in it, so I was happy with it.
But you're okay with her supporting John Fisher by wearing Gap on the red carpet?
Gap on the red carpet. Interesting. Do you have like photo evidence of this? Was it just like a Gap sweatshirt?
I'm gonna go ahead and Google it, although we know that doesn't really mean much these days. It appears she wore a Gap custom dress from Gap, designed by its new creative director, Zach Posen. We're doing exactly what they want us to do. Say names and shit like that.
I know.
Help
like
them
Zach
out.
Poser.
Got his ass. I like the dress. It's a nice dress. It's white. Single shoulder. I don't know terms. She also wore Bulgari bling, according to this people.com article.
Sure. I want you to go go menswear guy on her fit.
I gotta say, menswear guy, it's I admire commitment. That's one thing I admire. I admire commitment to the bit. I admire his depth of knowledge. What I will say is it is genuinely weird how many times he has tweeted the photos of the birth of Venus and the statue of David. Like it's too many times to have tweeted those photos.
We say as big fans of both.
Huge. I'm a huge fan of both of those seminal works of art. The world was changed by those works of art. You don't need to tweet the photos that often. We know. We understand that the traditional vision of masculinity is that the shoulders are wider than the hips, and that the traditional vision of femininity is that the hips are wider than the shoulders. We know. We get it. We got it. Good. Okay. We know. But pandering to your audience is fine. That's what we're doing here too. He's doing it for his audience, and we're doing it for ours. I'm not going to knock his flow. He's doing his thing. I would like to wear suits. That's my review of the menswear guy.
Would you?
I'd like to have more of an opportunity to wear suits. I feel good when I wear a suit. I feel horrible when I wear a tie, though. So I know menswear guy has a lot of thoughts about that.
Yeah. He said something the other day about how many older folks like style icon is Fred Astaire, and I'm like, yeah, I'd like to dress like him. I think. I don't know. It looks like a suit. Looks like it fits him. He does look like a styling man. I'd love to be able to walk around saying Fred Astaire is my style icon.
I wouldn't. I don't need to say stuff like that.
I think people might stop letting me into their homes.
I mean, I understand.
But I probably shouldn't have been sneaking in anyway. So.
If you look the part, maybe you could become friends with John Fisher.
It's true.
There is that one paparazzi photo of him where he's wearing a tuxedo. You know the one I'm talking about?
Yes, I do. Of course. Of course.
Of course you do. Anecdotally speaking, I totally understand where menswear guy is coming from, because about a year ago or 2 years ago, I bought a suit. I went to go buy a new suit. I was like, okay, I have a couple suits, but like I need to mix it up a little. I can't be wearing the same suit every time. And you literally cannot go off the rack and get anything except just like athletic cut or slim cut. I'm like, no, it's a suit. I want it to be like. And then I have this other suit that was passed down to me. It used to be my grandfather's suit that I believe was made in the 1980s. And it's like night and day. I mean, it's like so much wider. The shoulders are wider. The pants are wider at all parts of it. It's like, this is how we used to live. Okay. We used to be comfortable. We used to put on a suit and look good and feel good. Now we put on a suit to allegedly look good, except we end up looking like Andrew Tate. And we feel bad.
I usually end up looking more like one Jordan Peterson, but to each their own.
I think Jordan Peterson is accomplishing what he wants to.
Fashion icon.
I think that he is. It might not be what you or I would like to look like, but he, in terms of execution of vision, he's up there with Fred Astaire.
Can we move on?
Yes. Okay. Our next few questions are voicemails. Here we go.
Hey guys, this is Max calling from beautiful Providence, Rhode Island. Sorry if I sound like shit. I'm walking groceries up that hill. So my question is whether we actually agree that there's like no conceivable world in which we wouldn't want a salary cap in baseball. So so far as I see it, obviously I know why the union has never gone for it, and that's because basically the model since Marvin Miller has been you have like pre-arb, arb, and free agents, and what you want is like inflation in the free agent market, so that trickles down to arb. But that's basically still a market mechanism. It only works if there's a relatively smooth market, which is true for players, but it's not true for owners because the owners operate as a cartel, so you always have the collusion problem, which keeps salaries down, which you obviously know. It seems to me that a more socially democratic model would be having a salary cap and a ceiling, and you negotiate for some percentage of baseball revenue, or in an ideal world, some percentage of the values of all of the teams. And then from there, the PA would kind of negotiate for kind of a condensed or kind of squeezed income scale where you bring down super high salaries and raise super low salaries. So it's more solidaristic and leads to more unity within the union. So, I mean, it seems to me that would be a bit better because then you would definitely have salaries going up every year because, right, the team value or baseball revenue would go up every year. Kind of like what they have in basketball, which doesn't always work, but I don't know. I think it works okay. Anyway, sorry for rambling. Hope you guys are doing well.
First of all, Max, don't apologize for rambling because that wasn't rambling at all. I think that was a very astute breakdown of the differences between a salary cap and a non-salary cap league and the different factors at play, the different motivations at play here. I think that to answer the original question, which was whether we actually agree that there's no conceivable world in which we wouldn't want a salary cap in baseball. I don't agree. There is a conceivable world in which we should have a salary cap in baseball. It's just that it's a very nuanced difference in that the conceivable world is not actually that close. So for now, it doesn't really make sense to pivot to a salary cap model. Primarily, the reason is that what Max goes on to talk about later, which is that in other sports where there is a salary cap, you bargain over the percentage of the revenue that goes to setting that salary cap. In other sport, I mean, the most common model would be 50-50. However, I think right now, the owners would not be willing to agree to 50-50 because right now they are not putting 50% of their revenue towards salaries because they've done an effective enough job of suppressing the salaries on the lower and the middle end to the point where they would never agree to do 50-50 right now. The time to agree to a salary cap would have been, honestly, the 94 strike if they were ever going to do it. And then putting in stronger structures at play to protect the sanctity of that salary cap and not let owners undermine it. And then also more democratically spread out the salary within that. But the vision of the union has never been that. And I think originally Marvin Miller's view, which is the view of a lot of unions, was never hamper anyone from making as much as they want, because all wages towards workers are good wages, because otherwise they would be going to the owners. I think that is like the subtle distinction. If we were like to be able to wave a magic wand, making everybody, make the same amount of money or make close to the same amount of money based on service time or something like that, would be much more equitable and would be much more democratically spaced out, and it would probably build more solidarity in the long term. It would just be such a radical shift from where we are now that there's almost no way to imagine it being put into place without the owners manipulating it to the point where players would make less overall.
Yeah, I think my broad desire for a salary cap is mostly tied to like just the copious amounts of money in the sport, period. Right. And without saying, well, we can divert 80% of the revenue in this sport to like the communities surrounding the teams, I think it would become gamified by ownership groups, to your point, to try and bend the rules to their will, right? And it is something that we kind of see in basketball a little bit as well, right? With players getting max contracts, superstars getting max contracts, and veterans or lower to mid-tier guys far short of that, right? Struggling to kind of get their fair market value. So like it's not a perfect solution, but yeah, I do think that like ultimately I want a salary cap that probably goes way too far for like any of the 30 people in charge, right? One that sees the revenue going to the people who are producing the value in the sport. And frankly, like, I don't know, you zoom out a little bit and it's like, we should probably do a lot of things to make this game far more accessible to folks, like bringing down ticket prices and bringing down concessions prices and making it easier to see games on TV and that sort of thing. And all of these are things that like may well cut into the revenue streams in the sport right now, which I think is like a fine and good thing, as long as a majority of that revenue is going to the player. So I don't know. Max, like you, I'm kind of rambling here.
It's tough to imagine MLB with a salary cap. I mean, for a lot of reasons. The main reason being like the union was founded as no salary cap being one of the founding principles of it, and so like it's just so baked into the DNA of the union. But also like if you look at the other leagues and what they fight over every time their CBAs are up, it's always they just argue about what percentage of the basketball related revenue or the football related revenue is going to the players, and they argue about the definition of of sport related revenue. And it strikes me as like very difficult to parse that out in baseball, and also to take all of the animosity, which I think is a good thing for the labor side, like the animosity, the vitriol towards ownership, that's broadly a positive thing from my perspective, and funnel it all into that simple argument, Like you would take a lot of the levers that you can pull on and you would oversimplify them to the point where you just be arguing about what is baseball related revenue every 3 years, or every 5 years or whatever it is. And you can't really be that radical when you're just arguing within a smaller like you're arguing within smaller error bars for what your CBA looks like financially. And there are all these different mechanisms that the union over the years have come up with to try to support those error bars being wider and to try to support money getting to players in different ways. I just think right now we're in like a kind of dark time for that, where owners have for a long time beaten players in collective bargaining and negotiations for a number of macroeconomic reasons. And it didn't always used to be like that. Like MLB players used to get the biggest proportion of the pie. They used to get like close to 60% of revenue. And now they're down in like the high 30s, which is really bad. But also there are some of these other different protections, and there's like the length of the contracts and the limitless nature of those types of things in the baseball economy that would get dispensed with if you had a salary cap, most likely, because you'd have to put in all of these different contract structures in order to accommodate that salary cap. So I don't know. It's very complicated. And I think that I would listen to people on both sides of the argument as to what would be quote unquote better or like quote unquote more equitable. It just is different, than it is in other sports. Okay, next question.
Hi guys, it's Abby from St. Louis. I paused the podcast to call you and let you know that actually bars do have express written consent from Major League Baseball to disseminate their games. You need a license to do literally anything in a bar, to like have live music, to have a jukebox, to have the television on, to have captions on the television, to have volume on the television. And the money from those licenses goes to pay copyright stuff. Every once in a while, a bar gets in trouble for not knowing that, and then they get shut down and they get like fines and stuff. Anyway, I'm not a lawyer, I'm just a city planner, and I know that. Okay, bye.
Amazing note.
Thank you so much for calling to let us know. I had no idea. I imagine enforcement is a nightmare on that. What do you just have people who just like, whose job it is to go to bars and say, do you have express written consent for that? Do you have, sir, excuse me, can I barkeep this Reds Cardinals game?
It probably is a nightmare, but also bars are some of the most bureaucratically and heavily policed like establishments that we have because of the alcohol board, so there already is so much quote unquote enforcement in the nature of a bar and like regulatory activity surrounding bars that I would guess probably, it maybe is not as hard to enforce as it would be if you were trying to show a game at a restaurant that didn't have alcohol,
Right. Yeah.
But I guess food is also heavily regulated too. I just, first of all, this is a great note from Abby. And second of all, it makes me feel good that we have city planners listening to the podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
That's kind of like the demo that we're going for. Baseball, if there are like a significant portion of baseball fans who are city planners out there and they're not listening to this podcast, we're failing. We're not doing a good job.
Send it to your city planner friends.
Exactly. Because basically that's what we're doing here. We're talking about economics and city planning.
Hi guys. Wanted to first of all thank you. I wanted to get back into baseball, and after a couple of months of listening to y'all, I now rant and rave about the A's to anyone within a certain radius of me, which has been really confusing for everyone around me, but very satisfying nonetheless. My question is, I've seen the word contraction floated, and I'm just wondering what you think about that. I work in sport, so it seems crazy to me, the idea of contraction happening in the current climate, but is it something where maybe the MLB would wait until you have an NHL team, so kind of waiting for them to blink, or do you think it just would never happen again? Thanks so much.
Very topical.
Yeah, we kind of hit on this in part earlier, when we were alluding to the fact that some people are starting to throw the word contraction around. I don't see the benefit when you already have a team. Again, and they're in a fine market. I don't really see the benefit of contracting them. But then again, what does my perspective matter at all? Like, they do stuff that confounds me all the time. But like a forced sale would make more sense to me than contraction in terms of even the reputational hit that you would take as a commissioner, as a league, forcing a team to sell so that someone else can come in and be like, I'm going to run this team like an adult. Even if that looks bad in the short term, in the medium and long term, still looks better than not having the team at all.
It just feels like it would be a logistical nightmare, and also the kind of thing that would obviously have to be negotiated with the union, because you would be cutting an incredible number of jobs in the sport, right? Whether that is just for the next 2 to 3 years while they get a new stadium, quote unquote, or if it's just forever until they bring a 30th team back into the picture. I think they would have a really tough time convincing folks of that, especially as they are looking at potential expansion. It just feels like it throws too much of a wrinkle into the mix. And to your point, like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, you already have a team that actually has a handful of decent baseball players on it. Is the goal of Major League Baseball to make sure that it has a healthy economic ecosystem. Well, sure, to 30 plus 1 people. Yeah. But for most people, it's about having decent baseball in various markets across this country. And the A's, for better or for worse, are somewhat fulfilling that void. You could say how much they're filling it is an open question, but I don't know what you gain by losing the A's beyond just getting rid of this headache. Like, it feels like it just would create more headaches down the road.
That was like a legitimate contraction effort in 2002 for the Twins. And it went to the point of a vote, and the owners voted largely in favor of it, and then they were saved at the last minute. We've talked about it a bit in the past. So without, wasting too much time here at the end of the show going into too much detail about it, contextually, the early 2000s were much more of a friendly time towards the idea of contracting a team than now, where leagues are all about expanding. There's all of this cash flow coming in from sports betting, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. It would go against a lot of the trends that we're seeing. And they've talked about expanding too, because, they're trying to become less regional. So contracting teams and having less product doesn't totally make sense to me. I don't really know. And you would be forgiven if you looked at the actions of John Fisher and thought, this is a man who's trying to get his team contracted. That is what I will say to cap this whole episode off, but this question off as well. It's just it wouldn't be the craziest thing you would ever think, just looking at the facts of what has happened in the last 3 years. But also, I don't really see what the end game for that is either. If you get your team contracted, it's not like you get the money for a sale or anything like that. Do you just get to just wave away all of your debt too? Has he sunk all of his personal debt into the A's to the point where it's if you just poof vanished them, he would be better off financially? Maybe.
It'd be a good bit. It'd be a good heel turn.
Does he have a heel to turn left at this point? How many heels does this man have? Okay. Here we are, end of the show. We have gotten some feedback from the listeners about what our new closing power ranking segment should be called, or could be called. Remember last week, I suggested potentially calling it the closer or calling it extra innings.
Mm-hmm.
We got a suggestion from a listener to call it 6 out save. And then we add one item. So it would be a list of 6 every week. It's pretty good. I don't mind that. Lineup construction, sort of high concept. Ranking pitches. Put it on a t-shirt. And then collective bargaining as we negotiate back and forth how the list should look.
Interesting.
It's not really a collective process, though.
Right,
it's one person does it.
It's just unitary bargaining.
That's funny. Just name it something that just is completely indecipherable to anybody outside of the listeners.
You mean like naming your podcast after a somewhat esoteric baseball concept that has nothing to do with the actual contents of your podcast?
Yeah. I still remember very vividly when I was I never really thought about what that meant in the context of how our show operates. And you were oh, I kind of always just thought we're tipping our pitches. People know what we're going to think about this because we're so predictable and consistent. And I was that's great. That's great retcon work right there.
Yes, that was good. We intended it to be that way the whole time.
We don't have to decide right now. We're just spitballing still.
We're spitballing. We're ideating.
We're not in a rush.
Okay, but I do think it means it's my turn to pose to you a ranking of 5 items.
Getting anxious.
I know. In the baseball world or outside of the baseball world.
As a reminder for the listener, last week you ranked sunflower seed flavors.
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
Black pepper. Cracked pepper.
Yes.
One out in my rankings. Which, yes, exactly. But branding wise, it's important to get the terminology correct.
You ordered it 5th ranch, 4th barbecue, 3rd dill pickle, 2nd original, and 1st black pepper. Cracked pepper.
Yeah.
God damn it.
So if you have thoughts on that, if you think I was terribly wrong, you are welcome. I encourage you to write in with your own ranking, or just go scorched earth on my ranking. That's fine. We welcome that. But this week I would like you, Bobby Wagner, to rank these childhood games played on the schoolyard.
Oh, yes. Oh my God.
Remember recess?
Do I
fun,
remember?
wasn't it?
Remember recess? I give myself a recess every day.
That's good.
right around 11 a.m. I'm like, all right, we should play a couple games here. Have lunch.
Now, I had to use my discretion a little bit. There's no definitive popularity ranking of schoolyard games.
I'm really proud of you for using your discretion.
Okay, thank you. So here are the games I want you to rank, okay?
Okay.
Tag. Hide and seek. Foursquare.
Okay.
Kickball. And hopscotch.
I have some questions.
Okay. All right.
Clarifying questions.
Sure. How do you play tag?
Right. What if I was just like, what is Foursquare?
Right. To be honest, Foursquare is a game that I played on the schoolyard growing up many times, and I actually don't really remember how it was played. Something about bouncing you got to bounce the ball, and it's got to be inside the other person's square, or is it supposed to? I don't know. I was never very good at it.
Maybe you should have used your discretion to look up the rules.
I'm not the one who has to rank it.
First clarifying question: is this just traditional tag? Or are we talking like freeze tag? Or are we talking all variations of tag are eligible under the tag umbrella?
I think that tag and its variations. So okay. I suppose when I was thinking about it, I was thinking traditional tag.
Okay.
I would be curious to know if there's a version of tag that bumps it up or down your rankings.
I think
specifically if it bumps it down. I want to know if freeze tag just makes you livid.
No, see, I think normal tag is kind of boring, but freeze tag is very fun. It's a great concept. What an innovation, It
is, yeah. Well, and it's still tag. I qualify that as a game of tag, right?
Okay.
There's a wrinkle in it, but
okay. Just while we're spitballing, while I'm ideating over here, great word for podcasting.
Uh-huh.
I'm bummed to not see Red Rover over here. Thought maybe we could get some broken arms in the mix. I'm really bummed, frankly, very bummed to not see an option to rank Capture the Flag, which is an elite game. Strategic game. Athletic, simple, elite game.
Game. And you know what? I thought about including it, but ultimately opted against it in part because I thought it was too strong a contender. and it also is slightly different from, I think, some of the other quote unquote games here. Like that is an actual, I mean, you could even argue that maybe I should have left kickball off the list, but it's baseball related. We had to tie this in somehow.
Sure. Yeah.
But Capture the Flag is like much more high concept than the rest of these, I feel like.
Yeah. Galaxy Brain.
We know where it would land on the rankings.
Capture the Flag is sort of the just rebuild on the Coliseum site of options here.
Right.
Clear number one choice.
The answer's right in front of you.
I'm determined to make just an absolutely Galaxy Brained comparison every time we do this segment. Like last week where I was like, cracked pepper seeds are the God only knows of flavors.
That is going to stay with me for a very long time. I'll say that.
I hope it does. That's what we're trying to do here. Trying to make memories.
So you're good. You're vamping over here a little bit.
I think I'm ready.
Okay.
Number 5, hopscotch.
Easy.
What are we doing?
Just not a game. It's balance. Just how well you can balance.
Hopscotch is legitimately for like 4-year-olds. Like and anything beyond that, because you could draw the hopscotch tiles with chalk, and it's like, okay, we understand. Like now we have hopscotch in the driveway. But after you do it once, maybe twice, it's just over. It's not fun anymore. There's no added variation. I'm sure that there are like for the hopscotch heads out there listening to this, so like, haven't you ever played extreme hopscotch? And to that question, I would say no. Yeah. I was busy playing capture the flag. Sorry.
It is, hopscotch is one of those ones that could use a freeze tag like innovation, right? I mean, to your point, like extreme hopscotch, does that mean the spectators can like
throw stuff at you,
try and like shoulder check you? You know, you have to keep your balance while a dozen kids are sitting there pushing you out of the boxes.
Mm-hmm. So hopscotch is 5th.
Yeah.
Ooh. I'm gonna go hide and seek 4.
Okay.
Hide and seek is not fun.
Interesting.
Because it's only like kind of fun for the seeker, but for the hiders, you're just sitting there.
You're just sitting.
It's more like sit and seek. You're not really hiding, especially on the playground. Like,
yeah, where are you gonna go?
You just went and you sat under the slide. Wow.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Really,
creative.
Really shocking. You went and you're on a swing.
Roast these 9-year-olds for their shitty hide and seek locations.
I remember when I was
Think bigger, Isaac.
When I was in Isaac.
I don't know why that's the first childhood name that came to mind.
That is my baby cousin's name.
Okay.
He's 6.
All right.
He's 6 now. He's not really a baby, but damn.
Yeah.
I'm getting old.
Probably sucks at hopscotch.
He probably does.
Hide and seek.
So when I was in 5th grade, no, I was in 4th grade. I don't know if they were actually playing hide and seek or if they were just trying to run away. But we had our playground was like lightly fenced in, kind of in parts, but it like led straight to a lake and the woods. And so kids like did not often try to run away, but every once in a while you get a crazy kid. And I think somebody like was hiding in the woods, like when they called recess in, and it spurned like a whole breakdown, lockdown, manhunt situation, and they were just kind of like over by the lake, you know,
right?
Hid too well.
Hid too well.
The seeker really let us down.
I'm sure it was fun for that kid,
or scary, or just what they needed. You know, maybe they were trying to work somebody's had some stuff going on at home. I don't know.
It is the emotion of when you are hiding. You know, it's like the excitement goes up the longer you're there. You're like, they didn't find me. They haven't found me. I'm winning. And then it hits a point where it precipitously drops off. You're like, fuck, they can't find me. Oh my God, I'm lost forever. Send up the smoke signals.
My friends and I, at my childhood friend's house, we used to play hide and seek in the dark, in his basement. And there was like a few places to hide, you know, maybe like 6 places to hide. But the innovation was it's dark and the seeker can't really see. So they walk into stuff and they step on people. So funny. Hijinks ensue.
Yeah.
But really it was just like, I'm just sitting here in the dark, not doing anything. Okay. So hide and seek is number 4. Number 3. I am going to go tag here. I'm going to go tag on the strength of freeze tag.
Right.
Tag is like, okay. It's okay. It's like your garden variety playground game. It's like apple pie. You know, there's better pie flavors, but it's an American classic. Tag.
Right. You know what you're going to get with it. It's
tag.
predictable. You can count on it. You can set your watch to it. No
tagsies, backsies, obviously an essential rule.
Yeah.
Freeze tag, I think, is pretty good. We're talking maybe like a 60 on the 20 to 80 scale here. 60, maybe 65 if we're talking freeze tag. Because then you start mixing in some new elements, some team elements where you have a tagger, a freezer, and an unfreezer. And the unfreezer's running around wreaking havoc on the freezer's efforts.
Right.
We have sabotage introduced into the game. We used to play a version of freeze tag in gym class where we were on like scooters, I think. Or it was like freeze tag dodgeball, where if you got hit with the ball, you had to freeze. And there was an untagger who had to like crawl around and unfreeze you. I don't really remember all the rules, but I remember having a lot of fun. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're just talking about tag and its standard garden varieties. Mm-hmm. So I will have to put that 3rd. 2nd is kickball.
Wow. Interesting. Not where I thought this was headed.
Kickball is fun.
Mm-hmm.
I got banned from playing kickball in elementary school by the recess aides because I was too competitive. Who's surprised?
Because you were
No one.
you were juicing.
I was juicing. No, who's surprised? No one. No, because I used to argue with kids too much.
You'd be like, replay review.
And then when I was banned from playing, I was like, fine, I will umpire. And I ejected a kid, and he got so mad. Then he was like, I will fight you. And I was like, we're not fighting over kickball. And then I got banned from being an umpire. So then they were like, you can go back to playing.
The lesser of two evils. They were like, we shouldn't have given you more power somehow.
Appeasement, really, in its finest form.
Yep. You said, I can do worse. Watch.
Right, exactly. I like kickball. It's fun. At a certain point, the game just grows, like too many people want to play, and then you have too many fielders. You know, if there was a way to limit kickball where it's like, okay, sorry, you can't play today. You didn't hit the kickball lottery. We were only allowed to have 7 people in the field. Because how do you even get on base at a certain point when there's no area where it's not just going to get caught immediately? I also always found it annoying arguing all the time about whether a pitch was fair or not, you know? Because someone would like kind of bounce it or curve it or whatever. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, that's not in the spirit of kickball. We're all here to kick the ball. It's right there in the name.
Goes against the unwritten rules.
Right. You're supposed to give me a nice, easy, gentle, and I'm just supposed to put my whole force behind it. A lot of injuries playing kickball. Not for me, but just more broadly, because you're usually playing on cement and you're like sprinting to a base, but there's no mechanism for stopping. You're probably wearing Vans. The tread is just totally worn through, and you just slide and fall. I remember a lot of kids getting hurt playing kickball, which doesn't seem like that should happen.
Kids are rambunctious, though. You know, you're running, you got to slide. You got to put your body on the line. Yeah,
you slide on concrete?
Absolutely.
Okay. Commitment. I appreciate that about you. Which leaves Foursquare for number 1. Some of my greatest memories in life playing Foursquare, you know?
Incredible.
We used to obviously play Foursquare at recess, but then also my 4th grade teacher, we had some sort of like science flashcard Foursquare game where he would bring our class out to play Foursquare. And I don't remember exactly how it worked, but it had something to do with like, as you were hitting it, you said like what photosynthesis was or something like that. I don't really remember, but like there was some sort of interactive teaching element to it. So I played a lot of Foursquare in that year. And it's just always really fun. What a great concept. You just take a ball and you hit it into a box. What could be more American than that? Simple, easy. As many people as you want can play, because you put the line of people outside waiting on deck to come in when one person gets eliminated. And then you're in the king square, so you get to serve. I mean, that's talk about power trip.
Peak of living right there.
Exactly. You're like a starting pitcher throwing a no-hitter.
Who wants to face me? No one. No one.
My manager will not come out here and give me the hook. I don't know. I like Foursquare.
I think you talked me into it. Foursquare is fun. There's a little more structure to it, right? There are lines on the ground that you can follow. It's easy to set boundaries on who is able to play. It's a good sport. My in elementary school, our Foursquare boxes also doubled as the places where you had to stand when you got in trouble. So like I would get in trouble in class, and then for recess, you had to stand on the box, and you would stand there the entire recess, and your friends were not allowed to talk to you. You could not talk to anyone. You just had to stand there. No sitting. No, I see you trying to squat. Don't squat. Stand up.
That's intense.
It was really intense. Looking back at it, I'm like, holy shit.
It's really punitive. What? Yeah. You couldn't sit? That's insane.
Yeah.
When I was a YMCA camp counselor, when the kids would misbehave, they would lose, because the one thing that they wanted above all as a summer camp was their pool time. And each age group got the same amount of pool time. It was like 45 minutes or something like that per day, and we would just rotate through. And if you misbehaved, we would like cut into your pool time. So we'd be like, if you can't do this, or if you are misbehaving or throwing food at lunch or whatever, like that's 5 minutes of pool time that you're losing. And we would line them up in the grass, sitting, watching the other groups in the pool.
God. Wow.
Actions have consequences, you know?
Yeah, true. You want to be over there?
But they would be like dressed and ready for the pool. So they knew they were going in, you know?
Right, of course. Yeah.
We didn't put them on the chain gang or anything.
I wonder why so many kids are in therapy these days. Jesus Christ. It's like
right. Probably because they were all told that they get
time
trophies.
And standing on the box. Yeah, exactly.
Standing in the box.
And they would like stack the box. You know, it's like it's a square. So you can put 4 kids on that box at once. You're getting a lot of use out of it.
Oh, you were standing on the vertices of the box?
Well, I was standing on one of the corners.
That's what I meant. That's a corner.
Yeah, okay.
That's a vertice in geometry.
What are you using these fucking words for? What is this, a geometry podcast? I don't know what this is a podcast about anymore, if I'm being quite honest.
It's a podcast about Alex Rodriguez's allergies, city planning, macroeconomics, and kids' games. And if you enjoyed that, and you have other people that you think might enjoy that, send it over to them. Tell them to follow us, tipping_pitches on Twitter. They can email us, tippingpitchespod@gmail.com. Call in 785-422-5881. Have your voicemail played like those 3 voicemails we played earlier. Maybe check out our Patreon, patreon.com/tippingpitches. If you want more chat just like this, maybe we'll do a coda on the kids' games, a little bonus playground game content on the Patreon this week. 3 Up, 3 Down episode coming on Thursday. I don't think we have anything else to add, unless you would like to throw a wrench in here at the end.
I'm out of wrenches. I'm out of topics. I'm out of tissues.
Sounds like it's time to end the podcast then. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And we'll be back next week.
Hello, everybody. I'm Alex Rodriguez. Tipping Pitches.
Tipping Pitches.
This is the one that I love the most.
Tipping Pitches.
So we'll see you next week. See ya!